Without any further ado, we're just going to go straight into the match. We're going to, of course, be seeing it from Matteo's side, as he did record it via his own capture card. And we're going to be seeing him go for Lapras, Urshifu, Talonflame, Dracovish, Sizzle, Rillaboom. Whilst on Andres' side, we're going to see Toadkiss, Excadrill, Dragapult, Rotom Wash, and I forgot the last two because I didn't make it in time, Adam.
Well, we'll get into it in the game. Yeah. Obviously, Urshifu is brand new, and it's always something that I want to see when we get into these new formats.
Yeah.
Can the new Pokemon make their mark? I know that as soon as the Isle of Armor DLC released, people started talking just incessantly about Urshifu. Yeah. I have probably seen close to 200 different calculations on how much damage Urshifu can do now. So hopefully we get to see some of those come into play. And it's a really interesting Pokemon to me. I think it's going to mix things up a whole lot, but definitely some Pokemon we're a little more familiar with in the leads.
Yeah, so in the leads, we are going to see Andres go for Rotom Wash and Incineroar, whilst on Matteo's side, we are going to see the Talonflame and Lapras. So it'll be really interesting to see if they're thinking about potentially switching things up according to the current board position.
I think Talonflame's coming back. I remember Talonflame's been around since 2014. It's not fun to deal with, but it still exists, and you still have to worry about it. Rillaboom's something we're a little more familiar with, and obviously that Rotom not going to appreciate the pressure it brings. I think Lapras and Rillaboom here is kind of the perfect matchup against Rotom and Incineroar just on paper. But first turn we've got to deal with fake outs, and the game could slow down. I don't think it's going to be quite as explosive as we may expect.
It's true, and talking about explosive, we do see G-Max Lapras coming out, showing off its sheer size and a beautiful G-Max form of its own. Maybe trying to go for maybe a G-Max Resonance, trying to get Aurora Veil setting up. And like you said, Adam, we do actually see Fake Out coming out from the Incineroar into the Talonflame slot, whilst a Nasty Plot comes out from the Rotom Wash. So it's trying to start setting itself up, maybe opting to go for a Dynamax in turn 2. But before that, we are going to see Max Geyser come out from Lapras, picks up the one-hit KO onto the Incineroar. So unfortunately for Andres, his Fiery Cat is out of game 1, but it's not too bad of a situation. Actually, we see a Life Orb reveal onto the Lapras as well, so that could actually come into play. Rillaboom does have Fake Out pressure now, doesn't it, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much you can do now. I may have lied a little bit when I said this turn wasn't going to be explosive. I think Matteo playing it very smartly and saying, you know what, like, I know you're going to fake out something, so if you fake out the switch, it's fine. I don't care because it's switching in.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to Dynamax or Gigantamax the Lapras and just take a knockout and put himself in a really strong early position. Now he's got the fake out pressure himself. He can go after something like that Rotom. Of course, Rotom has Nasty Plotted, so it's drawing so much attention to itself.
Yeah.
But if you can fake it out, land a big hit on it, you could be in a good position. Dragapult coming in, not ideal against the Lapras. We do know G-Max Resonance is a big move. And I feel like Matteo could just continue to push his advantage on this turn. He's got a number of good options, and we'll see. Maybe he don't want to give it away for you guys in the next turn, but no fake out. Looks like he's just going to try and deal with the Rotom while that grassy terrain is in play. I think this is very wise. Getting your Dynamax in there to match is what you need to do early, but going for the Dragapult instead of the Rotom, that's an interesting call.
That is a very interesting call, because if for some reason Matteo did try to go for the Fake Out, he would have been successful unless we're seeing a Protect coming up from the Rotom. But no Protect. Grassy Slide from Rillaboom goes into Rotom, picks up the one-hit KO, showing off how huge of a damage output it has thanks to that grass terrain and its beautiful new move. Max Airstream from Dynamax. Dragapult is more than enough to pick up the KO onto this Rillaboom. So this Dragapult is, if it is maybe a weakness policy set, it might be built enough to resist a not a one-hit KO from the Lapras, but we actually see Life Orb Recoil, G-Max Resonance from Lapras. Is it enough? It is more than enough to pick up the KO onto that Dragapult, which it was just Dynamax only this turn, Adam. You were talking about maybe not an explosive one. This could not be more explosive.
Yeah, this game could be over in 3 turns. I mean, I expected some fake outs. The one thing I find really interesting there from Andreas is he doesn't Dynamax the Rotom. And I know that Rotom's one of those like fringe Pokemon for getting Dynamax, but not Dynamaxing it there. The Grassy Glide, it is a new move, so it's not always on the forefront of everyone's mind. and it just comfortably gets taken out by that Rillaboom. So this game's really not gone the way Andreas wanted. He's now left with the lone Amoonguss, a Pokemon similar to your Comfey that can't really fight back on its own.
Oh, that hurt, that hurt Adam.
I'm sorry, it was just right there for me. But you know, there's only so much you can do, and it looks like the game I thought we were going to have some fake outs, some boosts, it's just going to be called short nice and early. So Andreas definitely on the back foot from that game, but you know, we got to kind of see this flawless execution of the aggressive strategy, and he can now respond to it in kind.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it seems that at least with what we've seen from the current show of the Italian side, they're really going for this hyper offense kind of situation, like the type of play, because with the new Pokemon affecting the format so much, we have been seeing more hyper offensive builds go into play, because there's just so much damage that could go out. Like, for example, Talonflame, it kind of covers Whimsicott unless the Whimsicott is prepped against, for example, the Talonflame. So, like, all of these more prevalent Pokemon that have come out to play ever since the DLC have really changed this up, and we're just seeing the type of play from Matteo's side. He's able to pick up one-hit KOs left, right, and center, and that thus resulting in just a 2 to 3 turn of game 1.
Yeah, this team, just on paper, it kind of is, just looking at it. Obviously, Amoonguss is in there, some of the newer stuff from Andreas. Yeah. But his team, you know, the top 5 at least, are all kind of staples of this older format. And I know a number of people have been talking about it, that the format has changed. This is obviously the biggest change. We've had an influx of new Pokemon and an influx of new moves, which is very rare for us in the middle of a season. And the format's gone from being defensive, setting up, to really just trying to take knockouts. You know, things like Talonflame, things like Urshifu, they're there to deal damage. The new Rillaboom that can just do so much with Grassy Glides, Drum Solos. It's definitely become a lot more aggressive as a format, and I think we kind of see the downfall of this older team, which does need a little more breathing room. It needs time for the Togekiss to do some work. It wants to set up with a nasty plot. You know, I think you could argue that the format is just too fast for that team now.
Yeah, I think you're completely right. I think you actually hit the nail on the head. It's just like you said, because we're so used to pre-DLC, let's call it now, being able to have more of a defensive strategy to try to wear your opponent's Pokemon down. But being able to be in the situation where you can take absolute control and choke out a game as long as you make the correct decisions is just paying off for these teams. If you don't have a way to break through them, they will break through you. And with that being said, we're actually going to see the leads coming out. Talonflame and Lapras once again from Matteo's side, whilst we do see Incineroar and the Rotom Wash again, Adam, on Andrew's side.
Yeah, absolutely no reason, you know, for Matteo to change it up. But I do wonder why Andreas didn't decide to mix it up. Obviously, the Rotom matches up really nicely here. It has access to electric type attacks, and that's going to deal with Lapras and Talonflame very, very well. But that Incineroar is just kind of struggling to be effective in this turn. And I think, you know, we saw no switches. We saw that fake out nasty plot combo. That has to change this turn. There's no way that you can run that back.
Yeah.
You can't let the Rillaboom come in again, though. You know, you've got to be a little more aware of the Rillaboom.
Yeah.
Just because that's what dealt with the Rotom so comfortably last time. Looks like Matteo's just going to try and turn it on nice and early again, though, with his Dynamax or Gigantamax, just to get it going. There's no reason not to when you've got Lapras on the field.
Yeah, and we are going to see the Lapras go ahead and Gigantamax once more. It'll be really interesting to see what Andres is thinking about going into the scenario, if he's going to try to change it up or go for the same moves. Oh, he did! So he predicted, maybe Matteo predicting his prediction and being able to get that fake off onto the Talonflame, whilst once again going for the nasty plot. The real question is, will this Lapras go for the Max Geyser into Incineroar? Oh, we don't actually see it. Maybe expecting a switch out into a Dragapult, being able to just get the G-Max Resonance off onto the Incineroar, deals good chip damage, let's call it, you know, albeit the fact that it of course resists ice types thanks to its fire typing, but it does more importantly get the Aurora Veil up for Matteo's team.
Alright, so maybe we'll get the slower game this time, right? We've got Aurora Veil up, we've got Nasty Plot up, you know, we don't have a completely lopsided type matchup here. Obviously the Talonflame taking damage definitely slows it down a little bit. You know, tries to take away that ability, and that's good. I don't know how useful I'd consider Talonflame right now, but it looks like he's going to keep it in and try and set up with it. So we're definitely getting more setup. That said, You've got to watch out for the Rotom now. It's got Nasty Plot set up. You know, its electric type attacks can do a whole lot of damage. If it Dynamaxes, it's going to be harder to take out until the Rillaboom comes in. So we'll see exactly where it decides to go with it. It looks like, yeah, it just makes sense to Dynamax here.
Yeah, and I think Andres, like you said, he is able to recognize this. He does go for the Rotom right now. It is powered by +2 special attack. Let's be real. It is going to deal huge amounts of damage. The Talonflame is still on the field on Matteo's, and maybe it's going to try and go for a Tailwind, which it does, in fact, go for. It does want to get that speed advantage going. What will this Lapras go for? Presumably, it does move next, and it does, of course. G-Max Geyser does come out, does pick up the KO onto the Incineroar, whilst, of course, setting the rain right now as well. So it'll be really interesting to see what this Rotom goes for. The Resonance might be able to allow this Lapras to survive, even if it is a Life Orb set. And Max Lightning does come out from the Rotom, does go into Lapras, and does not pick up the KO, even if it's at +2 special attack. That Aurora Veil proving to be quite key there to its survival, whilst the Rotom is able to set that electric terrain up and change the dynamic compared to Game 1.
Yeah, I mean, Rotom staying in is really big here, because there's no immediate answer to it on Matteo's side of the field. What he kind of wanted, and I know it's weird to say, is you kind of want the Rotom to just take out the Talonflame, right? Like, you want him to get rid of that and allow you the free switch into Rillaboom. So nice of Andreas not to give him that, even though it's an easy knockout. It's probably not best over the duration of the game. That said, we're kind of in for another nasty turn, right? You've got the Dragapult in. The Dragapult can't even Dynamax now. So it's got to be a little bit careful. We see, you know, Matteo, we obviously have his side of the field, mulling over those moves a little bit. But the Rotom, you know, that's its first turn of Dynamax. You need to start getting some damage down on it, or else it could be in for a nice ability to sweep. If it can use this Lightning move, maybe this turn, deal with Lapras. Then if anything comes in that's weak or at least neutral to water, you've set the rain up for it with the Max move from Lapras. So it could be in a position to kind of turn the game on its head in the next couple turns. I think this Talonflame being in might slow Matteo down, actually.
Yeah, we're actually going to see a Taunt coming out from the Talonflame into the Rotom Wash. Maybe expecting it to last outside of its Dynamax turns and not wanting it to get any protects off. And we do see the G-Max Resonance from the Lapras, more than enough to pick up the KO on the Dragapult, but more importantly, outspeeding the Dragapult, meaning this is definitely near match speed on this Lapras thanks to that Tailwind. Max Geyser does come out from the Rotom, and of course will pick up the KO onto the Talonflame. Matteo is in a good spot. He's got a 3 versus 2 scenario going. He's got G-Max Resonance, Aurora Veil up, and this Lapras is just so strong under Tailwind.
Yeah, I mean, the Lapras is able to do so much. We are going to get the Urshifu out next, which is quite an interesting one. I think that's an interesting adaptation. Obviously a brand new Pokemon. Obviously people are still exploring and playing with it. And the Togekiss isn't going to be the favorable matchup. You probably didn't want to see the Togekiss in that 4th slot if you are the Urshifu. But you got to try, right? You know, you are, of course, going to be the single strike style. There's 2 styles that we have to be aware of. I don't know why, but I always remember Rapid Strike has its leg up because it's ready to run. That's my way of doing it. But, you know, you've got one more turn of your Dynamax if you're Rotom. You've got Togekiss in play to deal with the Urshifu. And Matteo's done with his Gigantamax Lapras.
Yeah, he is.
That said, you know, Rotom's going to take a lot of damage from a critical hit.
Critical hit, dealing good amounts of damage, showing how good of a move and Pokemon this Urshifu is, depending on the situation. Thunder being able to deal huge amounts of damage, but not pick up the KO onto Togekiss, even if it's Electric Terrain boosted. And Life Orb, Max Lightning does come out from the Rotom Wash and cleans this Lapras straight off the field, whilst the Togekiss hasn't moved before, and we do see it move now. Dazzling Gleam actually bringing the Urshifu down to 1 HP survival thanks to that Focus Sash. So I'm not sure. I feel like the board positions maybe slightly changed. This Togekiss is very weak though, but this Rotom Wash is being able to stand its ground, but it really doesn't want to see a Rillaboom coming in, right?
Yep, and this Rillaboom, I think bringing the Urshifu in was kind of a smart idea there, because you know you've got the Rillaboom in the back. You want to be able to deal with the Rotom when it's in its smaller form, right? So now he's going to be able to fake out it for a little bit. This Urshifu going to be able to try and fight back. I mean, it held on that Focus Sash being very, very smart indeed. But it's very, very low from that Thunder. And there we see kind of the combination that these hyper-offensive teams are putting together when they control the terrain, they control the weather, and they take advantage of both of them.
Yeah.
So that Togekiss taking huge damage from the Thunder. Lapras wasn't worried about missing. The rain was up. Looks like Rillaboom's just going to be able to tidy up this game now. Togekiss, follow me isn't the worst thing in the world, but if this Urshifu can knock it out, that should seal up the game.
Yeah. Ooh, Wicked Blow does come out from the Urshifu and does pick up the KO onto the Togekiss, leaving that Rotom in a very dire situation, facing up against this Rillaboom, because it was able to get flinched there. It couldn't, give out any offensive pressure from its side. Grassy Glide is a thing, is a very strong thing, Adam, and it's looking like it's a wrap-up, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Wicked Blow, always critical hitting, is good to know, and you can always rely on, you never have to fish for that, I need an extra bit of damage. So as long as he landed that on the Togekiss, it was a done deal. This Rotom, put in that awful position against the Rillaboom in the grassy terrain, with the Grassy Glide in play, and Matteo showing, a very offensive team. I really, really love the adaptations from Andreas in kind of the game 2.
Yeah.
I think he forced the game to go a little bit longer, and made some right decisions, but that Talonflame getting knocked out was exactly what I think he wanted. And once you kind of give him that, the Lapras was there to just do too much.
I think that's the case. I think you're right. It's just going to show that, the shift, right, Adam, between pre-DLC and current DLC is the fact that now being able to run a Life Orb Lapras and having Tailwind support can prove to be so pivotal, because not only are you dealing so much damage, outspeeding threats, especially because we saw there Lapras being able to outspeed the Dragapult in Tailwind, you're also getting your Aurora Veil set up. So it goes to show you how Matteo's kind of thought process going into this game and this tournament in general is being able to just go ahead, deal damage, take full advantage of the Dynamax mechanic, the Aurora Veil being set up. It's just, if you don't have a solid way of shutting that down and recognizing that as being such a crucial threat, it's just gonna steamroll you, isn't it?
Yeah, I think one of the things that, I know I've been teaming a little bit with some friends, is you get to Lapras every time, and you're like, all right, how do I one-shot Lapras?
Yeah.
And the calculation every time, you're like, okay, I can do it if all of this comes together and they don't have any setup. They don't have the resonance up, so they get Aurora Veil.
Yeah.
As soon as that Aurora Veil comes in, it's pretty much impossible. And the amount of damage it puts back, Lapras traditionally is not a hyper-offensive Pokemon, but I think the way it's positioned in the meta, I love the adaptation with the Life Orb. I think moving away from Assault Vest is exactly what it needs. Putting a Tailwind with it as well, using one of those more Series 5 Tailwinds in Talonflame is great as well. So really, a great adaptation. And I think Italy are probably on the forefront of this new, very offensive style that we're going to be playing for the duration of Series 5.
I think you're completely right, because they're just taking advantage. They're recognizing that hyper offense actually works right now, because the new fundamental changes that the DLC has been able to bring with the new access, especially the new moves. Who would have thought that Rillaboom would be absolutely everywhere? I mean, yes, Grassy Surge is amazing on it. No one would have expected Grassy Glide, though, being able to come out and function the way that it does. If you've got the terrain up, you can go ahead and give yourself a +1 priority, because you deserve it, because you went ahead and you waited for the moment for hidden ability Rillaboom to come out and just change the meta as well, because it's just amazing. It's got Fake Out, it's got the Grassy Glide. Mainly we've been seeing AV sets being run on that, so it even has access to U-turn. I've seen that as well, because they want to try to pivot it in this kind of form of Incineroar, but without the Intimidate. You know what I mean? So
there's a reason it's number 1 on usage right now, right? Like like Cinderace is obviously very good. Rillaboom's doing very well as well. It's just got so many tools in its kit that just make it a problem. If you had to bring Grassy Surge from something else, I think Rillaboom wouldn't be there. But the fact it's the all-in-one package makes it such a problem. And its Gmax form itself is pretty good too. I think its Gmax form is really good, really offensive. It's definitely, you've got to come into all these matchups. Do you have an answer for Rillaboom? Do you have an answer for Lapras? And there's not many Pokemon that aren't super obvious that they do that, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then you've even got like the Cinderace threat as well. So the Lapras is able to cover for that in a certain way. It just depends on how you approach it, what partner's next to Cinderace. But being able to go ahead, threaten Max Geyser or Max Resonance if the Cinderace decides to stay as a fire type or go as a flying type and go for Max Airstreams. It forces your opponent into mind games. The moment that you're forcing your opponent to really consider what, first of all, they need to lead against this. And if you have different modes as well, which can equally counterfeit and threaten them in different ways. And then what are you going to do in turn one? Turn one has just become so crucial to predict and understand the flow of. It's absolutely insane. And that is why we see hyper offensive strats being able to really work well. But regardless, I feel like we could sit here all day talking about it. I'm not even kidding.
we could go on.
We could go on and on for ages, but we're not going to blow your minds like that. What we are